Hello and welcome to another Broken Meeple review, and today I am reviewing Bosk. No, not that Bosk, that's got two S's in it. This is Bosk, B-O-S-K, and the Collins Dictionary has it defined as a small wood of small trees and bushes. So thickets, that kind of thing. The more you know. But this is a new sort of gateway level abstract game. Well, I say abstract, it has a theme setting, but it is basically an abstract game from Floodgate Games. And I know very little about this publisher, I must admit. This is the first game I kind of recognised from them. Maybe there's been others, maybe it's their first, I'm not entirely sure. But this was like, okay, I'm not well familiar with this publishing company, but it caught my interest because of the box. Because you gotta admit, already, that front of the box is very nice looking. It is a nice looking cover. And before we get into this, yes, let's just let's agree on the elephant in the room already. Bosk, photosynthesis. Where is that lovely photosynthesis? You see this game? This is photosynthesis. Yes, they both have themes about trees. That does not automatically make them the same flipping game, okay? For crying out loud. Yes, everybody is making the comparison between this and photosynthesis. They have the same setting. Trees grow. Yes, well done. But this plays very differently to this one. You can own both of them. This is a solid game in its own right and does not need to be compared to this one. So let's just deal with that right now, okay? But back to Bosk itself. Bosk is a game of essentially 4 parts, 2 scoring phases and 2 actual phases. You have this essentially park area with 8 different types of terrain. And in the first phase, spring, you basically play through a whole year. You take it in turns to place one of your trees onto the board so that the intersections basically plonks onto a corner, like onto a crisscross space. And you take it in turns to do this, and then you have summer, which is a scoring phase. You score for each row and column based on the values of the trees you put in there. Highest value gets the most points, second place, and there's a table for scoring in various ways. After you've done that, you then move on to autumn, which is where the real meat of the game, I believe, is. And that is where you have this track that somebody in last place will put around the side of the board, and it dictates the 8 rounds and the wind direction for the autumn phase. And in each of these rounds, you have these leaf tiles that you play with numbers on them from 2 to 8, and the squirrel was a kind of joker one. And you play these tiles, it gets you a certain amount of leaves, and then you, in the wind direction, you have to place these leaves on the board, subject to some restrictions, and you're trying to do area control over the various bits of terrain. And so everybody does this one at a time, and whoever played the lowest leaf tile gets to go first in the next round. Wind direction keeps changing, you're restricted at first on what trees you can activate. Every time you activate a tree, it comes off the board, so it clears itself effectively. And you're constantly putting these leaves down, trying to cover areas of the board and have the majorities. We then move on to winter, where you score based on the majorities for first and second place. At the end, total up the points, and lo and behold, first place is the one with the most victory points.
Of course!
So this one definitely feels like a gateway level game, and I would dare say it is. I think this is definitely what I would call like gateway guaranteed level. Haven't yet got an award signature for that, but I am in the works of trying to do some like award ribbons that I can put on my rankings for games, but I want one for gateway games as well, like gateway guaranteed or something. If you've got any ideas for decent catchy phrases, let me know, but I'm working on it. But this one would definitely suit a game cafe, would definitely suit a family. It's definitely on that lighter side. But it's deceptively clever, because you may think, well, I just gave you a very simple overview there. And that is most of the rules. And 2 of the phases out of the 4 are just scoring, which you just follow the book. Easy peasy. And the first spring phase is not particularly taxing. I mean, you're putting the trees on the board, and you're not overly caring about how many points you score in the summer, but points are points. I mean, it's good to get them. But what you're really thinking about, and you don't twig this, or the importance of this, until the first game when you get to autumn. Because you're placing the trees in such a way that later on, you want the trees to be in a good position for putting leaves out, because they have to blow away from the trees in a specific direction. So for example, you don't want to put both your number 3 trees right by the edge of the board in case the wind blows towards the edge of the board and then at number 3 and suddenly it's like, well great, my 3 trees are useless because there's literally no spaces I can put leaves on in front of them. So you've got to space yourself out while trying to get a few points in the summer phase. But then the autumn comes along and you've got to activate a 1 tree, then a 2, then a 3, then a 4, and then it's whatever you like. But you've only got 8 trees and they come off each time, so you can't activate the same tree twice. And it becomes very, very clever. I mean, AP players might struggle a little bit with this on their first go, but should be able to get it quickly enough. But you've got different leaf tiles. Do I want to just place 3 leaves or 8 leaves? Do I want to use my squirrel joker, which is basically like a 1-space trump card that covers all the leaves? It gets more expensive to cover spaces that have already been covered. So you have to basically discard leaves and then put the other one on top. And it's quite mean because you're only scoring for the one that's on top. This pile could be 7 leaves high. Doesn't matter. If yellow's on top, yellow scores it. And yeah, there's a lot of back and forth with the whole like, oh, I've got this area. You just covered my area. Well, I'm covering this area. You just covered my area. Especially with 4 players. It gets super mean at 4 players. 2 is it's more back and forth. But it's definitely a little less mean because, well, it's 2 player. You expect to be against each other, but it's definitely, even though the board scales well, and this game does scale well from 2 to 4 players, I've enjoyed it with 2 and 4, it feels quite open in 2 players compared to 4, which even though you've got more space, oh my god, everybody's after your throat in that one. 3 player I find to be quite a good medium. You got a fair amount of space, you got a little bit of competition, but not too much, but not too little. I find 3 to be my sweet spot. But of course, with area control games, you do have that risk with 3 players that 2 people kind of go at each other and the one person just gets away scot-free. Does happen every now and again, but for the most part, 2, 3, 4 players, it scales well. It's also super quick. This is a 30 to 45 minute game according to the box, and that's pretty accurate. The game should not take you any longer than 45 minutes. If it does, sack the player who is causing the AP, because the scoring is nice and quick. You just go through each row and column, score, 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 score. And in the winter, you just go through the 8 different areas, who's got the majority, score, and that's it. The scoring is nice and fast. The first round should be done pretty quickly, putting the trees on the board, because there's only so much you can predict. So it's really the autumn where the time is spent. But even then, 30 to 45 minutes is how long the game will take. Perfect for a family gathering. Perfect for a cafe. You don't have to do, oh well, just take a couple of turns as a demo and then we kind of got to move on. No, you can just show them the whole game. And pretty much, they don't even need your help. They could read the rules and learn it within about 5 minutes. It's not a difficult rule book to, get through. Except for maybe the leaf movement might just take you a little bit to get round. But there's good pictorial representations and the rule book is still fairly easy to follow. It even gives you some decent tables for the scoring, so you know what happens in like if someone's first and someone's second, what happens if there's only one first place, if there's no first place, if nobody's on the tile at all. It gives you all the different scenarios and what the points are, so you don't have that ambiguous, well, hang on, what happens if he's there and I'm on the same number of points? None of that. Rulebook, very clear. Production wise, this is definitely its strongest selling point. It's a beautiful game. Well, I mentioned photosynthesis there. Tomato, tomato, which one you prefer, really? But, I'm not going to make that comparison unnecessarily. This, in its own right, is a beautiful game. The cover is nice. You've got these, like, little cardboard cardboard trays that you put together that house all the pieces so you can store it vertically without a care in the world. You've got nice chunky leaf tiles. It's very colourful. The trees are these, well, this is a slight negative in a minute, but you basically have these cardboard trees that are nicely painted artwork. When it's on the board, you've got the different colored terrains and the different colored trees. It's a very picturesque game. And then the leaves on top and the little squirrels, it's a beautiful looking game. The minor negative I was just talking about though is that it's nice once you've assembled it. It takes a while to get this thing punched out because you got to punch out all the tree pieces and the leaf tiles. And you've then got to assemble the trees by slotting 2 together per tree. And I guarantee you, it will not be as smooth as simply just sliding one into the other. You will occasionally, get bits of cardboard stuck. It will be a little bit of a tight fit. It will get frustrating at times, and it will take a while, especially if you do it at night like I did. But once you get it done, it's a very nice laid out, in fact, I'll just show you. Probably an easier way of doing it. So, rulebook. Very small, as you can see, very thin. Even with a quick setup on the back, very nicely done. Take the board and the leaf tiles out, and there you go. I've played a game, I didn't bag them up lately, but you've got bags in here to keep the leaf tiles and your leaf tokens in. And then you've got the The trees below, they're in 4 trays. I can store this vertically without a care in the world. I mean, it is a very nice production, so kudos to Floodgate Games for that. So all in all, it's not a game that I feel like I want to play over and over again, like repeat sessions, but that deception on how clever it is. Yeah, because you play this and you do the spring bit and you think, okay, I'm just putting some trees down, whatever. Okay, there's a few points. Maybe I should have thought about that, but oh well, no big deal. And then autumn hits and then you realise, oh yeah, that's why that was important. It's a bit like the feeling I get from Quadropolis, the city building game from Days of Wonder. In that game, you start off thinking, well, I've got all the space in the world. I'll just put my buildings where I need to. Yeah, that's all good. And then you get later on and it's like, oh yeah, maybe some forward planning was in order. Same thing here. You put the trees out and then realise, yeah, I need to think about where I put these trees and not just stick them out wherever I feel like. And even when you have the trees in a certain situation, you got to decide which of the 2 trees of number 3 do you want to activate. Better that one, or should I leave it till later? Because you're going to activate all 8 of them. None of them are going to get left behind. And 1 or 2 of your trees might have become duds. And that is one negative I will have with this game. That wind track, this thing, it goes to whoever is in last place in the first round. This can have dramatic game-changing effects. So much so that it is better to be in last place by, say, a few points than it is to actually be first, second, or third by far. The turn order will fluctuate during the autumn phase, and that's depending on who puts what tile down. It's difficult to really tell who's going to put what tile down, so you kind of just have to play it as it goes. But choosing which side of the board to put this has a dramatic effect, because you can look easily at the other trees and go, if I put it on that side of the board, then your trees are screwed, mine aren't too bad, fair enough. A lot of power comes from using this board. But the other problem is that as you're putting trees down in the spring, you've got no idea where this board's going at all. You don't know who's going to be last. You've got no way of predicting the points in the summer. So somebody is going to get this board, put it on one side, and it is going to probably make or break your game. Not all the time and not sort of dramatically. I mean, you can get round it. It's not like if he puts it on one side, all your trees are unearthed, unless you're an idiot and where you put them, like all along one edge. But, if you've spaced your trees out, you should be able to make the best of a bad situation. But the summer phase feels a little bit off. Sorry, the spring phase feels a bit off because you're putting the trees out, and yes, you're trying to think about spacing them out and getting a few points in the summer, but you've got no idea whether your placements are going to help you in the autumn because you have no idea which way the wind is going to go. So, as I say, the meat of this game, and my favourite part of the game, is the autumn phase. The summer is kind of just, can we get this bit over with? I mean, it's done quickly. I mean, you put a tree out, put a tree out, put a tree out, you put all 8 out, right, you're done. It's a fast phase. But it almost seems a little bit, well, not superfluous because you kind of do need to do it, but it feels, what's the word I'm looking for? Less important or less engrossing than the autumn phases. But you do realise later on that, yeah, there is an importance to where those trees go, but like I say, you don't really feel that impact until later. It's a small niggle though, and it's not like a big hurt on the game, but just know that you don't have the ability to predict what the wind is going to do to you, and you kind of just have to roll with it. So, all in all, it's getting props. It's a beautiful production. It's very smooth play. With the one exception that the board does get cluttered with the trees, and a knock of the board might send some of them flying. And when you're trying to put leaves out, you're kind of like, trying to put one in there. You're trying to put your fingers in between all these trees, especially in a 4-player, and it's quite a busy board. Now you do take the trees off as you go along, so it does get easier and easier, which is a plus. By the time you're done, the board will have nothing on it but leaves, and it will be very easy to sort out the points at that point. Funny enough. But yeah, apart from that small niggle, very nicely produced, very beautiful to look, very beautiful looking, great table presence. People will constantly come by and say, what is this game? It's easy to learn, it's deceptively clever, it's fast, it scales pretty well. I'd say it's best at, I'd say most of the time I prefer it at 3 and then maybe 4. 2 is alright, but it's a little bit too open even for 2 players, I mean, it's not too difficult to have certain terrain areas all to yourself in a 2-player, no matter how well you're playing. And like I say, it's got a lot of props for it. I think it's worth checking out. Definitely, I think Cafe should give it a look. It definitely gets my invented gateway guarantee. I will work on this award at some point. But yeah, it's a solid game. I give it a 7 overall and think you should check it out. You know, it's kind of like, you know, I personally prefer photosynthesis if you really want me to make a comparison. But honestly, they play very differently, and hopefully after watching this video you can understand why they play very differently. So don't feel like the comparison is needed, okay? But like I say, I'll probably hang on to this one, or I'll donate it to my local cafe, and you know, means that I can play it every now and again. But I think this is one that you should check out if you're into a beautiful looking game, you like the idea of trees, and you want something that's not overly thematic, but just nice to look at, but challenging. So that's it for me. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple review, and until then, regardless of whether your squirrel is trampling over my beautiful leaves, it's still only a game. Take care, and I'll see you in the next season.